Joining us now is Okpe, with stories trending around the world. Hello, G.
Tunde, what have I done to this gentleman? Good morning. Happy Friday. How are you?
Yes, thank God it's Friday.
TGIF. Yes. Good morning, Tundun. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
You look lovely. Good. Thank you. Good morning, Rufai. How are you?
Okay.
He's so innovative every day. One new word. How are you, Rufai? Good morning and happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, my dear.
Great. Good morning to you, viewers. We begin what's trending in Nigeria. Reactions have trailed the petition lodged by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo requesting the Inspector General of Police to investigate a blogger who reports that he received 4 billion naira from embattled EFCC boss Ibrahim Magu. The Vice President wants the online blogger Jackson Ude, whose platform Point Blank News published a report on Wednesday that Ibrahim Magu embezzled over 39 billion naira and gave the Vice President 4 billion naira for a soft landing, an allegation the Vice President described as totally false and baseless. Nigerians on Twitter have shared their views regarding the probe. Let's take some tweets. Well, author and lawyer Reno Omokuri wrote, "It is abuse of office for so-called Pastor Professor Osinbajo to ask the Inspector General of Police to investigate Jackson Ude. If VP Osinbajo is sure Magu didn't pay him 4 billion naira as alleged, then he should sue him for slander rather than use the police to intimidate him." Well, in response, the online blogger Jackson Ude wrote, "Osinbajo should have used the U.S. police, FBI, or even the CIA to charge me for criminal defamation. Using the Nigerian police is a waste of poor Nigerians' taxpayers' money, except his aim is to arrest me in Nigeria and lock me up forever." Finally, a user wrote, "Jonathan was criticized, castigated, lambasted, slammed, and even mobbed with stones, even by members of his administration. Did he set the Inspector General of Police against his opposers? No. Buhari and Yemi Osinbajo should follow due process and sue Jackson Ude instead of this petty intimidation." Well, this has been viral. It's been going around social media. This blogger was the former director of strategy for communications in the Goodluck Jonathan administration. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Adbati. Is that correct?
No, you're not wrong.
Yes,
I referred to Jackson Ude earlier.
Okay, you did.
He worked in the attack dog department of the Jonathan administration.
Right.
That's one interesting episode. I got a quick, text message from Dr. Doyin Okpe,
yes,
who was the leader of that public communication arm of the government. He said, no, it was not attack dog, that it was an attack lion department.
Okay.
Wow. Well, but I wanted to just finish on this. Based on his tweet, it appears that he's not in Nigeria. Is that correct?
He's based in the US.
He's based in the US.
He's the publisher of Point Blank News. Right. And, of course, he's well connected with whom. And he has also given the... he has responded to say that, look, he knows a lot more that he can expose.
And then he also went on to say, let me just finish this point. He also went on to say that if the Vice President is denying these claims, that the Vice President should come out to actually ask the Presidential Investigation Committee to release the transcript of Magu's confession.
He has his claims, but... Now, in some of the tweets, one of the reactions indicated that the Vice President should go to court. And already the Vice President has asked his counsel, Professor Taiwo Shipiton, SAN, to go to court. That he's alleging defamation, injury to his reputation, which is, of course, within his rights.
Some of those tweets that you read were funny to me. I
needed you to address that.
How are you telling a professor of law how to go about matter? I mean, whatever your political allegiances may be, the man knows what he's doing. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and a professor of law. And talking about sue Jackson Ude for slander, I mean, really, slander is verbal defamation. Whatever is written is libel, so that in itself is wrong. All these armchair lawyers, are you not tired, Dr. Abati? Go and get a law degree before you're pontificating on Twitter. So apart from that, the Vice President, now we talk about whether or not he should pursue this, because former President Jonathan did not. It depends on each person's personality. It depends on your character. Former President Jonathan and his choices do not mean that's the gold standard for everybody else. Some people are able to shrug off what they have defined as lies. Some people cannot. And defamation in Nigeria, Chapter 33 of the Criminal Code, is a criminal offense. It's a criminal defamation. It is a misdemeanor. It has a jail term.
Correct.
So he could go the civil route or the criminal route. He's within his rights. You can't tell a professor of law. Come on.
That's why I wanted you to address that one. First tweet.
Defamation is personal.
Yes.
It's about personal reputation.
Yes.
And every individual has a right to defend his or her reputation. So, and that's why I said that Professor Osinbajo is perfectly in order. Now, Reno Omokri, you quoted a tweet from him. You know, I also worked with him.
Yes. And
when you were reading his tweet, you said he referred to Professor Osinbajo as so-called Professor Osinbajo. I don't think that's a fair comment.
Yes.
He cannot be a so-called pastor. He's legitimately a pastor. He was head of a parish in Victoria Island, which is known. So it's not, I don't think it's polite to say he's so-called. And it's not a so-called professor. He earned it.
Correct.
He taught me at the Faculty of Law, Lagos State University, Equity and Trust. I sat in his class. And he's the author of one of the most authoritative books on media law in Nigeria, which he co-authored. So, but I mean, Reno Omokri is entitled to his opinion, but to say Professor Osinbajo is a so-called pastor or a so-called professor, I don't think that's polite enough.
Okay. Rufai, what are your thoughts on this?
Let's be very careful. That's number one. I would say that because this is a matter we are still looking at, we're still looking at the evidence. There are a lot of allegations everywhere. Let's tread softly, please. Let's still hear more from Magu. There are many names mentioned already. Let's be very, very careful, and let's look at the evidence before us. I know there's a court of public opinion that is so quick to say all whatnot, but let's be careful. These are very, 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 delicate times for our nation. And I am happy about what the Vice President has done, because this is the second time this is going to happen, allegations like this, and he'll come out to defend himself. Because in the long run, that dents, your integrity. These are the things that are going to make up the legacies of this administration. So let's be very careful. Let the Vice President go his way, get his counsel in, look at the case, and if Jackson Ude says he has, more evidence, let him come out with it, but let's be careful.
Correct.
If he has more evidence, let Jackson Ude come out with it.
Let's hear it.
And let's hear it. And the Vice President should take this on, as strongly as he can. Because this is really a very touchy time for our nation.
Okay. I mean, that's a very good point. But the point that Jackson Ude also made in one of his tweets, where he said that he would like to compel the presidential panel to have Magu's confession released to the public if the vice president is claiming or denying those claims. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that if it does go to trial, he would have to... Basically, the thing with defamation, what you have to establish is that the statement is a lie. That's the number one. Then that it harmed you. But first, you must show that it's a lie. The vice president is alleging that he has been lied upon, essentially. So in order to defend himself, Mr. Ude will have to adduce his own evidence. So he should adduce that evidence.
But this is not a suit, right? This is just
it's an investigation. I said if it goes to trial, yes.
So
he should.
How do they expect the police to actually do this, given that he is overseas at this point?
Well, this is not the first time that Jackson Ude will be threatened. He has made quite a number of disclosures, particularly on Twitter and through his, site, his online site, pointblanknews.com. Yes. And when people threaten him, he doesn't feel intimidated. He says, look, he's an American citizen. He doesn't even have an office in Nigeria. And if you threaten to sue him, you can go ahead and do so.
Yes.
So he's a very courageous journalist, and I don't think he's bothered, because after the threat, after the statement by Taiwo Shipping on SAN, He posted something
That's
on
Vice
his Twitter
President's
handle.
lawyer, yeah.
Yes, I said so. I've said so thrice this morning. He pointed out, he said, look, if they keep intimidating him, he will reveal more things. But I just hope, of course, that all of this ugliness will pass and the truth will be justified. And as Tunu pointed out, the basic difference that you have in cases of defamation is the difference of truth on the part of the person making the allegation. And on the part of the person, suing, you have to show that there has been damage to your reputation. But I'm sure at the end of the day, all of this will be resolved.
Yes, I hope so too. Should we take another story? Well, still in Nigeria, the Kano State Police Command announced on Thursday that owners of uncompleted buildings in the state will be persecuted as accomplices of any rapist who perpetrates the crime in their property. The state police spokesman Abdullahi Haruna told reporters that the resolution was reached following an investigation report that 33.3% of rape cases had been perpetrated in uncompleted buildings in the state. The police has warned owners of uncompleted buildings to finish up their buildings in order to prevent criminals from committing the crime, adding that if any rape is perpetrated in an uncompleted building, the owner will be charged as an accomplice. I mean, I think that this is quite a courageous move by the police in Kano State. I don't know how that's going to work out. We can go into the laws and what have you. But I'd like to just talk about the report real quick. They also mentioned that they had recorded 42 rape cases since January and May in Kano State, and that out of those, 15.6% were in shops, 17.7% were at farmlands, and also 15.6% also at, either the suspect's residence or, the confines of the suspect, and 8.9% in schools, 6.7% at the victim's residence, and 2.2% at marketplaces. I mean, the fact that he's talking about uncompleted buildings, I don't know how that works out in the law in terms of being an accomplice of rape.
Well, being an accomplice to a crime is a crime.
Yes.
But this is extending, it's stretching the definition beyond the point that I don't think I've ever heard of that. Usually being an accomplice is some kind of conspirator. Maybe you drove a getaway car, you procured what was used in the commission of the crime, but that you are the owner of the building, the uncompleted building, that is a huge stretch. But I suppose it shows the seriousness that this issue of rape is now attracting, which is good, which is to be commended if that's the case. But we've got to take a brief break now,
and they will come back.
Finish.
Sure.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Oji Okpe on What's Trending.
Yes.
Before the break, we were talking about this story about Kano.
Yes.
And making those who are owners of uncompleted buildings accomplices if a rape occurs in the building. And I was saying that that is really stretching the definition of accomplices beyond the point that I personally have ever heard of. But I guess now the onus is on those with uncompleted buildings to either finish or secure the building so that they are not implicated in any way in what they may or may not know anything about.
Yes.
And what tends to happen with uncompleted buildings? Why do we have them in the first case? Sometimes people begin a project.
Exactly
they get stuck,
my point.
They can't finish it. So I suppose what that is saying is that it creates now a pressure to make sure that you have enough once you begin, once you embark on the project.
Is there any backing to that, though, like constitutionally, or what about the laws? How are we going to enforce it?
It's stretching it. But we all know how it is. You might not, to be an accomplice in the criminal code, you are charged with, it depends on the severity of the crime, sometimes half of the sentence of the original crime, sometimes almost the same sentence, but you might not actually get a conviction. But even without getting a conviction in the courts of law, who wants that awful process of being arrested, investigated, detained, questioned?
Right.
Do you need that?
But what if they don't have money to complete their buildings?
This is the problem. This is the issue.
Well, I think there are two issues here. The first is about duty of care, which means that, look, if you have a space, you are in charge of something, you have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that your space is not used for committing crime, that you take necessary steps. But overstretching it, yes, the person making the comment may be overstretching it, because in criminal law, the principle is that, look, there must be mens rea, there must be actus reus. Now, if you don't have the mind to commit an offense, you cannot be accused of having committed the offense. It's called actus non facit reum nisi mens et rea.
Okay.
So in this particular case, even if you take somebody who has an uncompleted building, you take him to court because his uncompleted building has been used for rape. How do you prove it? Because you cannot say that the person had the mind to commit rape. You cannot say that he was involved in the action.
Exactly.
So it's the thought and the action that are the two major issues in matters of guilt. So, but again, at the same time, I guess the commissioner is expressing concern about increasing rape, which is something that all of us are concerned about. And you cannot dictate how people develop their buildings. If you don't have the money, as you yourself have pointed out, you can develop a property for the next 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
If it cannot
My
be
father
proven
did
that
almost.
you have turned your building into a site for rape, and then, of course, you cannot be considered an accomplice either before or after the committing of the crime.
Okay.
Well, can we argue negligence, Dr. Abati?
Well, that's why I said duty of care, because that's related to negligence. So if you have a property, you also have a duty of care, a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that, you know, under the law of tort, your property or your space does not violate the rights of other persons.
What are your thoughts, Rufai? How are these people going to come up with the money to complete their building so they're not charged as accomplices?
Maybe they should start by giving them money to complete their building.
Very good point.
What a stretch. What a stretch. It just shows the thinking, you know, what a stretch. And I feel very sad. I mean, there's a house close to my family house in Odogwulu. That man had been building since 1981. It's not completed till date. He's still alive. I don't know for what reason. The house is still uncompleted. So would you turn things overnight around for that man? I think what the police officers should be saying, the conversation that will make me more excited is conversations around how do you prosecute those 42 people you've arrested for rape.
Correct.
How do you make the laws better?
Correct.
How do you make prosecution effective? That should be the conversation, not like what they say in Yoruba, talking about uncompleted building. Do you know tons of rape cases too that happen in hotels and the likes, even in police stations? It's not, for me, it's not the place. It's how you deal with the case of what is happening. Even in prisons, do you know tons of rape cases that happen in prisons that go unreported? The venue is not the problem, but put laws in place to ensure that people are prosecuted. I think he should have come out to tell us about those 42 people arrested. What's going on with them? Have they been charged to court? Has the trial started? Have they been prosecuted? Are they in jail? If he tells me those 42 cases, people that perpetrated that very heinous act are in jail, I'll be excited.
Great.
Stop talking about uncompleted building if you can't give them money to finish it up.
Very good point, Rufai. Let's take our final story in Nigeria. New images of the world's rarest gorillas with several babies were captured in Cross River State, Nigeria. The gorillas were spotted in the dense Mbe Mountains in Cross River State on a camera set up by Wildlife Conservation Society. The subspecies are critically endangered, and at one point, only about 300 were known to be alive within the mountainous area in Nigeria and Cameroon, according to the International Union for Conservation for Nature. The latest sighting raises hope that the Cross River gorillas are successfully reproducing despite facing extinction. I love this story. I mean, when I saw it, I was so excited. But one of the tweets that I read, it was so funny to me. It was like, why do I feel like you guys snitched on these gorillas? Because now they're going to be poached. Who knows?
I thought about that.
You know, because remember, I believe it was last month, we saw a school of dolphins, you know, and when the man that was filming the dolphins was saying, if we use this for pepper soup, meaning we can use this for one of our, dish in Nigeria, which I think, but this also raises the question of tourism. You know, I think it's such a beautiful thing that we have these gorillas in our mountains and in our forests, and we should be able to capitalize on these gorillas. And I mean, not that I am advocating for zoo life or anything, but I think that there is a way that we could capitalize on these gorillas as well.
No, there absolutely is. You're thinking along the same lines on this one. You know, earlier we were talking to Reuters. He had this awful story about the elephants dropping dead in Botswana. But he was talking about how it was $2.5 billion generated from tourism for Botswana, and that's all these tourist dollars that Nigeria is leaving on the table. We have these beautiful animals here. Yes. But you're right about poaching. Now, Cross River, I remember maybe like 20 years ago, somebody I know was involved in some local community outreach, educating people, don't kill these animals. Because poaching really, as far as I'm concerned, is as bad as infanticide.
Yes.
Animals are so innocent. Well, apart from snakes, kill them.
What?
And the other animals just leave them alone. You know, they're disgusting. So I really hope that they still have those programs continuing.
Yes.
This I'm referring to was 20 years ago. I hope it starts again. We don't want to hear awful headlines about these gorillas.
I know. They're so beautiful too. What are your thoughts?
I think the big issue here is wildlife conservation. Yes. Which has been an issue in Nigeria since 1914. During the colonial period, the colonialists did not pay enough attention to wildlife conservation. And that has continued more or less under the post-colonial governments that we have had in Nigeria, despite the fact that in 1982, the National Wildlife Conservation Foundation was set up here in Lagos, and that in 1985, we had a rainforest sanctuary in Benin. And before then, we also had the Lake Chad wildlife conservation project in Nigeria. I think that the basic challenge is for us as a country, as a government, to pay more attention to wildlife conservation. There have been prominent Nigerians who have made a lot of contributions in this regard, notably Chief S.L. Edu and others at the Wildlife Conservation Body in the Lekki area of Lagos. Oftentimes, people in Nigeria, they say wildlife as a bushmeat. There's an obsession with bushmeat as a policy. As a personal policy, I don't eat bushmeat.
You don't?
No, I do not.
Let's ask Rufai. Rufai, do you eat bushmeat?
Never tasted it. I'll never taste it.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's a delicacy, isn't it?
I don't even eat goat meat, let alone bushmeat.
Okay, then you're the wrongest person to ask. Dr. Abati, please finish your point.
Thank you for that.
I was going to say that, the major challenge for the Nigerian government is to make the preservation of wildlife a priority. Oftentimes in this country, you just hear that, people are killing a hippopotamus somewhere in the River Niger or at the Bar Beach in Lagos. There is a whale that has been washed ashore, and people are bringing, axes and cutlasses to take their own portion of it. I think for the balance of the ecosystem, for the purposes of the diversity of our flora and fauna, there should be more education with regard to the importance of wildlife in maintaining our ecosystem.
All right. Before we go on a quick break, can we go on a break?
No, break.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Well, thank you very much.
And have a great weekend.